So for us, when we do a 4-laning project, for example, if we were to use an example where we have a 2-kilometer stretch that is going from a 2-lane highway to a 4-lane highway, and in this example, we'll say that it's an offline, and so it's not on the current alignment. For us, when we are early in the design phases, we know that we'll have to buy properties. We understand environmental assessments will need to be conducted. We'll also need to understand what the ground conditions look like. Early in the design phases, we know that there's going to be costs associated to those, so we take a very parametric approach. And as we move through the project life cycle, which can take generally for larger projects such as 4-laning 2 to 5 years, we really refine those costs and understand how one aspect might impact another. And so for us, an environmental example, that takes time for us to get our environmental permits from the properties. If we're purchasing properties, we know that that is a negotiated process that can take time, and understanding that the time then also impacts the cost. And so with cost escalation, market values may change, and so all of these pieces need to be considered throughout the project life cycle. Additionally, if we're delayed in any aspect of the project, this may push us into another construction season. Certainly a lot of British Columbia is not in spaces where you can construct year-round, and so that needs to be taken into consideration, because if there's a shorter construction season, the timing for us is really important to ensure that we maintain those costs. And understanding also that if something happens that was unexpected, that may push us into another construction season, for example, and those are all costs that we need to plan for and be ready to. And so during the project, in early design, as I mentioned, we start with parametric, and moving along through the life cycle, we have various third-party reviews that take different approaches to the cost estimates, such as bottom-up or analogous reviews. And also we do a lot of market sounding by doing shadow bids. And so with the ministry having everything go out to public tender, we really look to what the market conditions are at the time that we plan to tender, and try to find a way to minimize all the costs to ensure that we are using public funds effectively. The ministry does put all of our projects out to public tender, and so we do have a lowest bid model, and so that's where we really need to understand in our cost estimating, having a really good understanding of what market conditions are, so that we, for example, know that the price of a barrel of oil really impacts the price of asphalt. And so we do a lot of market sounding and third-party reviews, and take a different approach to each stage of cost estimating to really ensure that we've done a thorough job of our investigations. So the 4-laning project I was speaking of has moved through all phases of the development cycle, and we were able to tender it for public bid. So to this point, we would have done all of our investigations for an environmental perspective, archaeological investigations throughout the project limits. Also, we would have purchased all the properties, and so these are now costs that we know and we have in our known cost estimate. This project was successfully tendered, and a contractor was awarded, and construction began. And for us, construction is generally multi-years for these larger projects, and so first year of construction, we started from, say, A to B. We started from A, moving towards the west, and the intent was to build 4 lanes of highway in a straight line together from A to B. During construction, it was identified that although we had done all our best work in archaeological, our information is never perfect. And so during construction, we were excavating an area that was getting closer to the other end of the project limits, and we actually found a very significant archaeological find that was unexpected, and now we had to adjust to work through what we do there. And so working with our Indigenous partners and other interested parties, we had to change our approach. It was identified that the best way to address this significant archaeological site was to actually move the highway around. And so for us, these are now a risk that has triggered, and now we are required to change the actual design of the highway. And What you'll see in the images is the before pictures of what the plan was initially, what the initial design was, and then subsequently what the updated design was to be very considerate of the fines that we had. And so for us, on a costing basis, now we are restarting those costs to identify exactly how much this redesign costs. And so I mentioned previously, asphalt and concrete are easy to square meter wise be able to estimate. However, there's other costs now, looking at purchasing extra properties and time. And for us, if there's a contract in place, we have to be considerate of the fact that we had an end date listed, and so now the contractor is unable to continue doing their work because we need time on an engineering and technical side to redesign that highway and ensure that what we develop is something that can be constructed and also considers all of the other pieces that we have gone through the development cycle of environmental and archaeological and geotechnical, and making sure that all of those costs and considerations are considered, and that we then can deliver the highway as planned with 4 lanes